Good morning, everyone. This is Dan Old School Green. With me, as always, is Nick the Scout Tosti. We are Flyer and Ice, 2 minutes for roughing, brought to you by the Heat Ratio Sports Network. Always subscribe on YouTube, tap the bell, and you'll be triggered to all the wonderful programming Heat Ratio has to offer. Today, we're going to continue with the Flyers prospects. Now, the past couple episodes, we discussed Tyler Foerster, Jay O'Brien, Connor McLennan, Elliot Desnoyers, Bobby Brink, and Ronnie Attard. Attard, Brink are all on the club. Attard's playing very well, Nick.
Yes.
And
we knew that.
Yeah.
That was coming.
And every player but O'Brien, I believe, we discussed would be within a year, if not next year, potentially on the roster.
Right.
So help is on the way. Now, the thing that I think we're missing, no matter how much help is on the way, I still don't see that dynamic, lightning fast, stick handling centerman type guy that can set up Foerster for the one timer along the boards, that could get Desnoyers a one timer in front of the net, that can dance through the neutral zone. We don't have that back up the defenseman type elite prospect as of yet, but we've got a lot of solid pieces, and today we are going to discuss these following young men. So, Nick, taken in the 4th round of the 2020 draft was a fire plug named Zayde Wisdom. A lot of people are high on this kid. He has an interesting background as well. What can you tell us about Zayde Wisdom and his potential future with the Flyers?
I'm rooting for this kid. I mean, he seems like the type of kid that is just has got the work ethic to get where he ultimately wants to be. I mean, he's again, you're talking about another undersized skater with speed, high energy player. So we've got a few of those in the system right now, and some of them that are making their way up to the club, like you just mentioned. He spent, we got a little glimpse of him in Lehigh Valley before his injury, and then he looked pretty good. He if I'm not mistaken, he played about 30 games and had about 18 or 19 points. So
hurt his shoulder, correct? And it shut him down.
Hurt his shoulder, right. Came back, and he's back at Kingston again, and he's playing on a line with Shane Wright now. So, that tells you something. I mean, the kid is playing with who's going to be the number 1 overall draft pick, in this upcoming draft. And on the other side, he's got Martin Kromiak, who's going to be another first-round pick. But he could score goals. I mean, and he's not right now because he's playing second fiddle to Shane Wright, but he has really good hand-eye coordination and quick hands and speed, and he's that high-energy player. Now, he's young. He's an 02 birth year. His contract will be over, and he's already signed his ELC with the Flyers, so he'll play in Lehigh Valley next year. I don't think he's going to be one of the players that comes in and steps up and makes the club next year. He could if he really impresses them in the preseason, but he's got a little bit of swagger to him too, and he gets a little bit dirty. He's not afraid. I mean, he could be that little Nat like type of player that it's getting into the boards and forechecking hard and causing turnovers in the offensive zone and making things happen there. And he does play good defense too. He'll be a penalty kill kid. But I like him. I root for a kid like that. I mean, just from his background and all that kind of stuff and what you want to see coming out of NHL players, even for, from the point of you want to see more diversity. From what I can see from him, he'll be on this club. It's just a matter of time on how quickly he develops, to the change in the NHL pace.
And as we close on Zayde Wisdom, isn't it true, Nick, that, obviously today's hockey is changed. There's not the 1 fight, 2 fights a game. I mean, the Flyers have a fight a month. That's a lot nowadays. Yeah. But he is the kind of kid that can definitely drop the gloves and handle himself.
Yes, he will.
And he wins most of his fights at his size.
Yes.
So that's good to know. You have a little bit of a mini enforcer on the team that'll stand up for his teammates. So now this next prospect intrigues the hell out of me. And before I hand it over to the Nick, Ivan Fedotov is a giant, 6'7" goalie. Now, he was taken in the 2015 draft. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that's when Provorov was taken number 1, and Provorov is no longer a kid, 24, 25 years old. Konechny was in that draft as well. But the interesting part of this draft, and it makes you think, what are the Flyers doing? I know you can never have too many goalies or defensemen, but if you're going to have all these draft picks and keep them in your system, you got to either crap or get off the pot, play them or trade them for assets. Listen to this draft, Nick. The third round pick was Felix Sandstrom. We all know Felix Sandstrom. He could be gone after this year. He's a free agent. Again, a high draft pick that wasn't really utilized for assets or the big club. Matisse Tomac was taken in the same round as Sandstrom, third round, 20 picks later. And in the 7th round, we took Fedotov on a flyer because he was a 6'7" giant who was a beanpole at the time. But in essence, in 2015, we drafted 3 goalies, and only Sandstrom has sniffed the NHL. So what can you tell us about the giant, Ivan Fedotov?
Well, I remember in 2015 when they picked him, he was not good. He was not a good goalie. I mean, he was strictly, let's take this kid based on the eye test on size and see if he can develop. And he's developed into becoming Russia's starting goaltender in the Olympics this past year. So, his goal against his save percentage is decent. It's a little better than average. I think he's floating around 919, 920 on a save percentage on his average, but he's big, Dan. And you're right. I mean, you give goalies an extra look because you're 6'7". I mean, he would be the tallest goaltender in the league if he played in the NHL right now.
Correct.
So, what you said about Sandstrom, possibly, his free agency is coming up this year. Urson is coming up as a free agent this year. So, are you losing a couple of your best prospects and then have to give Fedotov another look now and see what happens? I mean, he'll get a big look this year for sure. I mean, at the very least, I think we'll see him been playing at Lehigh Valley, and who knows? He's definitely a late bloomer, and late bloomers typically continue to develop as they get older, when at least 25 years old. But he'll be an interesting guy to watch over the next year or two. Again, you root for a guy like that just because of his size and all, and, put a little more pressure on Carter Hart to really seal up that starting goaltender job. And a little competition wouldn't hurt there.
And as we talked pre-show, Carter Hart, listen, we both thought he would have a bounce back year this year. And before the Flyers just completely fell apart, he was playing very well. And now it's like, as we talked about, Hasek or Brodeur in their prime wouldn't look good with this club. But that being said, some of the saves or goals, I should say, that Carter Hart gives up that aren't completely from defensive breakdowns, he drops down, he looks small on the net, and he gets beat glove side often. With this kid, even if he tends to drop down early, he's always going to look big in the net when you're 6'7".
Right.
So we should pray and hope he turns into a Ben Bishop or Vasilevsky type giant goalie with skill in the NHL. And let's close, Nick, with the 2nd round pick in the 2020 draft, taken the round before Zayde Wisdom, and the round after Tyson Foerster is Emile Andre, who, as my wife's grandmother would say, Ivan Fedotov could eat soup off his head because this kid is only 5'8".
Yeah, he's tiny.
So what can you tell us about Emile Andre?
So I got watched him play at least three games in the World Juniors. And the Swedes had plenty of high-end talent, when coming into the series over the winter. And they chose to give him the C. So, he was the captain. He intrigues me a lot because I wasn't a real believer in him because I kind of go size first, which is really becoming obsolete at this point, forgetting about how big or small a player is. It's how they can play. But he moves the puck really well. And at 5'9", he plays with a ton of confidence. And, he reads and executes plays quickly. He makes good things happen for his teammates, which is what you want out of a smaller type defender that's bringing the puck out of the zone. His stick handling is superb. And I'm really getting more and more intrigued by him. The more I get to watch him play, and the more I read about him. So I think he's a guy that could make, out of the three guys we're talking about right now, he'll be a guy that I think will make this roster over, out of the three that we're talking about sooner than later, quite a possibility by the middle of next year. If there's some injuries or if there's some situations where we're calling up a defenseman, he'll be playing at Lehigh next year. We've had, you had mentioned some of the previous shows that we had scouting some of these other, when we call, Bobby Brink will be playing here. Yes. Attard will be playing here. Yes. So those type of guys, we still have, Zamula, that looks like he'll make the club and stay up here. And York will be the leader of this defense for the future. But I think Andre will be able to contribute sooner than you think.
Now, would you say Andre is more of a stay-at-home type, a mixture of offense, defense? Would you give him a comparable to a Torrey Krug type player? Like, where would you rank this 5'8" captain of the Swedish team?
I think he's very smart, so he'll do whatever he needs to do in the feel of the game. So if it's having to transition and being a little more defensive oriented, he will. He's got the skill set to be able to move the puck through transition. So I think it's a little bit of both. I like the Torrey Krug comparison. It's very similar, but very smart. So another thing that we need to look at is what the hockey IQ is, and how that helps them translate quicker into the NHL.
All right, there you have it. Hopefully we have a combination of a mini Cam York on the rise and Emile Andre. We encourage you to go back and look at our previous prospect episodes. They are on our Heat Ratio Sports YouTube page. Every show is categorized, and scroll down a little bit, you'll find Flyer and Ice, and you'll see the Tyson Foerster one and the Ronnie Attard one. They're staggered. They're a couple episodes apart. So on behalf of Nick, I'm Dan. We are Flyer and Ice, and we will catch you next week with, who knows, more prospects. Stay well and enjoy your hockey, ladies and gentlemen.
Have a good weekend.